This week on FX Guide TV.
We visit Lola VFX and chat with Edson Williams and Thomas Nittman about their work over the years.
This and more coming up next.
Hello, I'm Angie and welcome to FX Guide TV. This week we visit Lola VFX in LA. Mike visited the team to discuss their pioneering work in digital makeup and other work such as their incredible contributions to the Marvel Universe.
Edson, thanks so much for being with us. I really appreciate it. I've been wanting to interview you guys for ages. You're kind of my compositing heroes. The company's been hugely successful and congratulations on that. But how long have you basically been doing things with the team?
Lola's been in existence probably 12 or 13 years now, quite a while. We started out doing music videos for another company, and we noticed that we're spending money doing beautiful cosmetics on rock stars, but no one was doing it for feature films, and no one was targeting feature films. And that was kind of the impetus and the creation of Lola, was to start doing cosmetic work on actors.
In the early days, I knew of your existence, but it was incredibly hush-hush. Like, I was one of the few people that kind of knew about it. I guess I was industry, but it was almost like the company was doing the exact opposite of marketing. You were keeping things really quiet.
Yeah, we were kind of the unicorn of visual effects for quite a few years. We still are. People call and ask for our reels, and we still don't send them out. Some of the stuff we're allowed to share, but most of the work we do is still, it's more on the sensitive side. And we've been around long enough where we don't have to promote ourselves. But initially, it was a problem because we couldn't show what we did. And what we actually ended up doing is we rented a suite at Chateau Marmont in Hollywood. We rented a 35mm camera. We had 10 different actors come over, and we actually shot stuff just so we could show what we did, because all our work was sensitive. So if you shoot a no-name actor and you give him a six-pack, okay, that's okay, as long as it's not a famous person. So our initial demo reel was all no-named actors shot up at the Chateau Marmont.
Okay, that initial work was digital makeup, and of course it progressed to things like Captain America and other stuff that's happening today with Avengers. But can I go back to the early stages and just ask you, I mean, it was all compositing back then. I kind of assumed that you were doing 3D, but in the early days it was just 100% a compositing environment, wasn't it?
Yeah, our background was all 2D. I was a 2D artist, it's what I knew. So I was really good at Photoshop, and I was really good at 2D compositing. My 3D skills were generally lacking. And we started solving problems with 2D instead of 3D. It turned out to be a benefit. Initially, it was a hindrance, but as we started forcing the envelope into making 2D work, we started getting cost savings and efficiencies, because we weren't trying to recreate entire environments. We were just trying to massage what was already shot in camera. And even now, I think we're probably 85%, 90% 2D still.
I have to say, earlier in my career I did some face tracking work and some compositing work on faces, and I was struck by just how unforgiving it is. Like, the subtlest shadow line kind of shows up. You must occasionally end up hitting your head against a wall because it's just such hard work. Yeah,
faces are really tricky. It's something you look at all the time, and you can't really identify what's wrong. The real problem for us is you look at it and you're like, it doesn't look right, but I'm not sure what's wrong. And we'd get notes back from clients, looks wrong. You're like, okay, which part don't you like? And they couldn't really tell us, because in their gut it didn't feel right, but it wasn't really quantifiable. So what we ended up doing is we started approaching it more scientifically. We started consulting with plastic surgeons when we did X-Men. One of the big things we did was we hired a plastic surgeon, and it was really beneficial because we were able to get his eye. He was professionally trained to modify the human face, and he knew what was wrong. So with his guidance and really kind of treating it more as a science instead of as art, we were really starting to kind of fine-tune a look, and we're able to create the de-aging techniques that we still use today.
Yeah, amazing work. Say with Patrick Stewart and X-Men, just remarkable. But when you were doing that, what were some of the big lessons you learned from the plastic surgeon? I mean, what were some of the things that surprised you?
The big thing, the eyes, like subtle things. Like if the eyes go down, it was feminine and upper masculine. So you just which way you pull the corner of the eye, and it was just 5 pixels either way would make them look masculine or feminine. And if you split the difference, it looked androgynous. So it was the thing we learned was the subtleties. You had to treat things with kid gloves. If you want to remove a wrinkle, you can't take a wrinkle away. You just have to reduce it. Once you remove the wrinkle, all of a sudden the person looked like a music video. It looked porcelain. You're like, okay, they look young, but they look like a porcelain doll. Why? Well, you have to start bringing back some of the flaws. So things we learned early on were keep flaws. You can't remove all the flaws because you don't look human. Yeah. And don't remove everything. Just reduce.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because from a plastic surgery point of view, I mean, you got here in Hollywood, there's a lot of people that actually have plastic surgery. And one of the things when someone gets like a brow lift is they can't actually furrow their brow anymore. And I guess that's the downside, no matter how good the plastic surgeon is. So the key thing with what you're doing is maintaining the ability for the actor to emote, to sort of not lose the way plastic surgery can, the ability to not be able to strike a particular facial expression.
Yeah, one of the things we notice with, we do repair on actors who've had plastic surgery. They'll come in, too much Botox, for instance, and there's no movement in their brows. So there's been a few projects where we've actually had to animate the brow to mimic the performance they should be giving. Wow. And that's happened on a few different projects. The other thing is people get plastic surgery and they get pulled too tight, and the proportions change. And it's like what I was mentioning earlier with the corner of the eyes being too high or too low. If you pull your face, it will change the directions, the natural directions of a face, and it starts to look wrong. You get the uncanny valley on a human face.
It's an interesting concept, isn't it? A real face not looking real. I guess to go back to my previous point, I mean, it's important not to lose the expression in whatever technique that you're doing. I mean, it's central to the whole exercise that the actor can still emote and their performance still goes up on the screen.
Yeah, we're really careful about maintaining the original performance. And that's one thing that Lola has really excelled at over the years. There's the mouth and the face and the eyes, there's so many subtleties in there that if you start losing them, it takes away the performance and the soul. So we're really careful, especially around the corners of the mouth and the eyes. A lot of times, especially initially, we'd start removing too much under the eyes. You started kind of flattening out the face. And we noticed that we had to start bringing back some of the imperfections and some of the little subtle wrinkles in the eyes, even though on the outside it makes them look a little bit older, but without those little creases and wrinkles and corner of the mouth as well. If you strip them away, you start losing the humanity of it, and you just start feeling more plastic and less lifelike. Even though the original basis is a real person, if you strip away some of the little subtle cues, it's gone. And you don't know why it's wrong, but it just feels incorrect.
Yeah, it isn't just what I would guess I'd call the hockey mask, is it really? Because you guys are trying to do a holistic solution. So you're kind of moving, I guess, into the ears and the neck.
Yeah, one thing we noticed is if you just replace someone's face, you're like, okay, that actor, it looks human, everything looks correct, but it doesn't look like it's the same actor. And we started expanding out why does it not look correct. Well, the hairline is huge. So you have if you replace someone's face but not the hairline, then all of a sudden now it doesn't look like the same person. Or the ears. There's so much difference in ears. And ears are actually kind of problematic for us. We always have trouble trying to pull ears in because they're typically at the back of the head, and a little bit of rotation you can lose or gain or lose the ear by just rotating. So we have a hard time trying to replace ears because it's at the incident angle of the head, and the little changes in the head really will make the ear change dramatically. But it's really important to have those ears. So we stress trying to maintain the hairline, trying to keep the original actor's ears. We're talking about face replacements here, not just age reduction. But we really stress and keeping all the small parts of the face, not just like the hockey mask, which we would call the center mass of the face. It really extends past that. That's what you see and you think of the actor, but it's all the surrounding parts of that face that also help to define who that person is.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned digital makeup and face replacement. And earlier, I think you were saying that when you're doing de-aging or aging stuff, that sometimes you need to go to things like the hands because they play really strongly.
Yeah, hands are really important as well. It's posture and hands. A lot of times we'll do de-aging on hands. If you have a young face and you have age spots, then all of a sudden you're like, there's a mix match. Or if you have a young face and no age spots, but there's like really strong tendons. So we'll go in there, we'll key the shadows of the tendons and reduce those. So we're really good at shadow manipulation. That's kind of the approach we'll take is the initial thing we'll do is almost like a dermabrasion. So the first thing we'll do, if we want to de-age, say, an actor, the first step is we'll go through and do almost like a digital dermabrasion. We'll take away the major imperfections. The next step we'll do is we'll start lifting up the shadows. So when you shoot an actor, they always want a little bit of contrast and light, so it feels like they're in a scene. But the contrast and the light makes a person look old. So a wrinkle in the face now is more prominent because you're older. So what we'll do is we'll literally undo the original photographer's lighting. and we'll start filling in some of those shadows and dark spots and smooth out the texture using lighting. And then the final step we do is we actually do like a facelift, a digital facelift. And that's where we'll make the tip of the nose, we'll push that up. The earlobes always come up.
Because the ears and the nose continue to get bigger with age.
All your life, yeah. And something else that happens as you get older, your philtrum gets longer, but what actually happens is your top lip starts to curl under. So as you get older, the big puffy lips are youthful because that's how you imagine a young person. But as you get older, your lip thins and it curls under. So that's why older people have very thin lips. So we have to go back and thicken up the mass of the lips. The facelift, the digital facelift, the jaw always gets loose. So you start getting loose skin here, and you have to warp it back up.
I think as you're talking to me, I think you're actually looking at my face and working out how you can make me look younger, which is fine. I appreciate it, Mike. I'm not a particularly young guy, but hey, I'm wondering when you're working here at Lola, is it important to have the actor here, like in makeup, or if you're doing de-acting or whatever? Do you require their presence?
When we do de-aging, it depends on the range of de-aging. If we're gonna do like a 5 or 10 year de-aging process, they'll just shoot with little regard to what we need later. It's not a dramatic enough age reduction, so the actors and the directors, they can all be on set, shoot normally, and then once they have a locked edit, they'll provide us the shots they want us to work on, and we'll work on top of that.
Okay, so you can get me to look like me in my early 40s without actually having to see me.
Yes.
Okay, but what if you wanted to get me to my 20s?
Yeah, if you want to get someone to their 20s, then it starts getting a lot more complex. And then that's when it starts coming in to the realm of 3D. And that's when we really want to start using more 3D assets. The biggest thing is the jawline. So, a 50-year-old jawline versus a 20-year-old jawline is dramatically different.
Because it's less angular, or?
Yeah, the skin's now hanging over that nice clean edge. So the bone is still the same, but your skin is now kind of wrapping down and around it. So you get the lumps and you get the little jowls, the neck starts to loosen up. So those are areas that are really helpful if we'll do like a 3D jaw, or at least as a guide for our 2D artists. So,
sorry, I'm just really curious about that. I mean, we have effects coming from the skin having less collagen, elasticity, and stuff like fat distribution, and literally growth. You said that the nose, right? The nose is bigger, right?
Yeah, it's a combination of de-age, or as a person ages, there's a combination of things that happen. One, your earlobes and your nose continue to grow, and your lip recedes. That's kind of a physical thing. Yeah. Other things that happen is you lose fat in your cheeks. So the fat literally starts kind of dripping down, and then starts collecting down along your jawline. And that's why you get the big jowls here, but you get the sunken cheeks.
Right.
So if you want to make someone look younger, one thing we'll do is we'll erase the shadows under the jawbone here and fill them out. So we'll do kind of digital relighting, and adding some fat back to the face helps a lot. Cleaning up the jawline, which when I mentioned we use 3D assets, and that'll give us a cleaner edge. So that gives us kind of the guide to kind of warp that skin back up to.
Now in the modern age, you've done stuff that I think is spectacular in a different way. I'm thinking particularly of Captain America 2 with Peggy. You obviously had the actress in bed, but I think she was just pretty much shot just straight up. And I'm wondering, when you're aging and going the other way, is it the reverse process, or is it a different approach?
We do two things. We'll do de-aging and we'll do aging. The aging process is always much harder for us than de-aging.
Because that's special effect makeup's guy's kind of worst nightmare, isn't it? Aging. I mean, everyone thinks it'd be really easy. You just add grey hair and wrinkles. But actually, it's not as simple as that, is it?
Yeah, one of the problems with making someone older, even digitally, or if you do it with makeup, is you're adding mass. If you're doing it with makeup, you're adding mass, and you have to add wrinkles and creases. And these things all have to be tracked and animated. So to make someone look younger, you're removing wrinkles. To make someone look older, you're adding. And it's significantly harder. And what we ended up doing with old Peggy for Captain America 2, the plan was to shoot Haley Atwell just with 5 tracking dots on her face. We shot her on set, no aging. She had a gray wig, and no aging was done to her face. And our plan was then to, after the principal photography was done, to put her in old age makeup, and then take that performance and stick it back into that original set photography. So it's kind of a 2-step process. You shoot the actor without any makeup. You then shoot the actor with makeup later at a different time, and then wrap that back onto the original photography. But the problem we had with that is the makeup just never got to the point where it felt correct. If you try to make someone 5 years older or 10 years older, you can add a few crow's feet, maybe add some stipple to the skin, make it look older. But to make someone look 50 years older, you have to add so much creasing and so many wrinkles, and the neck has to be hanging. It was was kind of it was like a shell on top of her performance. So as she's trying to emote, the prosthetics were literally dampening her performance, and it was also very uncomfortable for her. So she sat in a chair for a few hours getting makeup done. Then we said, okay, action, be emotional. So she's not on set against her actors. She's now in a different room than the original photography was shot. She's supposed to be recreating her original performance, and her performance had to be coming through this heavy makeup, and it was dampened for along the way. Performance is dampened because she wasn't with the original actors. Her makeup held down her performance, and it was uncomfortable. So she was performing bad for that as well. So what we ended up doing is we ended up scratching that idea altogether. We tried a few different techniques. We kept making the makeup thinner and thinner and thinner, but it still wasn't quite right. So trying to help drive the makeup, the practical makeup, to be more accurate, we cast an old woman who had kind of a Haley Atwell jaw. The nose is a little bit different, but it was similar facial features. We said, okay, what would Haley look like in 50 years? We cast that woman, and we had her perform the same lines. And we did this initially to help drive the prosthetic makeup. We thought, okay, if we want to make the prosthetic makeup look better, well, what's the real skin look like? And that was our guidelines. That we need it to look like this, need to look like this. And at some point, we're like, okay, well, why don't we just take this old woman's face and wrap it around Haley Atwell? And that was kind of our aha moment. That was our Hail Marys, so to speak. And that was, I think, the first time. It was definitely the first time we did it, but I think it was the first time we did a digital aging of a person. And it was really amazing, because what that allowed us to do is to maintain the performance of Haley's when she was on set. And the editors love that. We get what's called temp love. So you have, you get the temp,
yeah,
and the editor sees it for 5 months, and then you start delivering the final comp, and they're like, this isn't like the temp. And you're like, okay, yeah, but this is the final comp. They're like, no, I want what I saw for the last 5 months. Yeah. I want her eyes, I want her mouth, I want that little expression.
Those are the things that I made a decision. I was editing around that.
Yeah. He literally was editing around these decisions that he made months ago, and he now loves them. So it allowed us to maintain her original performance on set and maintain the subtleties that she was giving. It was definitely one of our breakthrough moments at Lola.
Okay, so what tools are you using to do this?
The tools were limited because we didn't plan on doing it this way. So initially we just put 4 tracking dots on her, or 5 tracking dots. We had a tip of her nose, we had a couple on her cheek, we had a chin and here and here. So it wasn't enough to really drive a performance rig. We didn't have that, that wasn't what we're thinking when we started. And she had a really smooth skin. So you have a perfect face with just a few tracking dots. So that was probably the single most challenging part we had on the old Peggy, was trying to wrap this real old skin around this young face and have it stick. So we ended up creating tracking dots. We cranked up the gamma, and any little imperfection, like a mole, a dot, a crease, literally anything we could claw onto, we did, and that helped stick the old woman's face onto young Haley's face.
So we discussed the ears and the mouth, but I'm just wondering, we haven't discussed the hair very much. I'm wondering, is that possibly a 3D thing? Because when you're dealing with people dealing with hair is immensely complex. You did mention briefly the hairline, but is it more than that?
Yeah, hair is really tricky for us. To do a proper hair sim really takes a dedicated team of very talented 3D artists, which is something we lack. So we'll treat it more as we'll Band-Aid hair. So if you need to replace a complete head of hair, it's something that'll be beyond us. But what we do a lot of fixes on are wig fixes. So you'll have an actor who changes their hairline, and you'll see like the little mesh. So typically when you replace someone's hair, as in traditional photography, a movie, you'll get a wig, and around the edge of the wig, where the hair gets kind of threaded into the fabric, it gets glued down to the head.
Yeah.
And you get like this, and you'll see like a little stipple, a little edge. And the other problem is these hairs are literally tied onto this mesh. You have like a mesh fabric with hairs that are individually tied on. They're ran through and looped, almost like a macrame. So you have this macrame mass of hair on a fishing net stuck to someone's head. And once you get past the hairline, it looks good, because the mass of those macrame hairs get dense enough where you don't notice. But along the edges, it falls apart. And because we don't really have a dedicated 3D team to do hair, what we'll do is we'll do matte paintings. So we'll literally take in Photoshop, we'll take say if I turn from here to left to right, we'll find a good middle frame, and we'll literally do a matte painting, and we'll have our matte painting artist will draw in the hairs. So literally hair by hair by hair by hair, and then we'll take that and then track that back onto the original photography. So instead of doing CG hair, we'll do a 2D Band-Aid. And again, that's kind of using our skills with skin and 2D to accomplish something that would typically be a 3D fix.
Thomas, thanks so much for being with us. I really appreciate it. I've really admired the work that Lola's done. I'm just wondering, how long has the company or this team been working together now?
Well, thank you, Mike. It's been around maybe about 12 years. We started in 2003, and basically, idea came up after we're doing a lot of music videos, and we thought we'd market the cosmetic side of the business towards feature films.
So Thomas, the first film that I was aware of that you guys went public on, I guess because it was so obvious, was the de-aging in X-Men. You had the two lead characters at the very beginning of the film, and it was very central to the storyline. Was that a really big turning point on going public on what Lola had been up to?
Yeah, even then, that was like pretty much the first time we did go public with anything we did, because it was more of a story point in the whole movie. It wasn't more of a vanity thing. It was more they needed to be younger, for the flashback sequence. So yeah, it was a very big turning point where we actually were able to get some marketing material and come out in public with it.
It was an incredible step to see the actors looking so young on camera. I'm just wondering, did you have sort of a healthy doubt going in, or did you know that you could nail it before you started?
There was some doubt. There was a lot of the good part was the good and bad part was they already shot it. So we basically had very little input on what we can do in the beginning. So they kind of gave us a sequence, and the studio and or people in production may have been more unsure of if it was going to work or not. And I think they probably had workarounds if it wasn't going to work. But as we started going through it and developing the aging technique, the first couple shots that we turned over looked quite promising, and then there was a big, on the production side to do more and get all the shots in, because everyone was quite excited about the work.
Yeah, there have been a couple of films, haven't there, Thomas, that really were, brought you to everyone's attention. I guess another one of those big films was Benjamin Button. That was amazing work with Brad Pitt.
Yeah, that was a big de-aging sequence with Brad Pitt and Cate Blanchett. Initially, when we did that, I think David Fincher was certain how he was going to do a CG aging part of the two actors, but uncertain about how to de-age them. And actually, they came over with the producers to our place, and we actually looked at the X-Men material, and that kind of helped sell the whole procedure for Benjamin Button. That yes, it's possible, and kind of explained how we would do it and what we've learned from the past. And I guess it made David Fincher pretty comfortable, and it was a big project for us.
I guess also David Fincher on The Social Network.
It was, absolutely.
So it wasn't de-aging. I was going to say it's face replacement, but actually it was more like twin duplication.
Yeah, they call it twinning, and on Benjamin Button he called it youthification. It was basically on The Social Network, two different actors. I don't think the second actor knew he was going to be replaced while they were shooting it. We basically were able to take the hero actor's performance and kind of basically cut and paste and wrap it around the other doubles performance, which was a big deal as well. There was maybe 15, 20 key shots where it was more of like a CG mask that was done. A lot of 2D, but also some more 3D techniques that were used. And it was a pretty big deal. There was also, a lot of the movie was also split comps as well. But those 15 or 20 shots were kind of, very difficult, and kind of, again, a R&D project to figure out how it was going to happen.
It was very effective on screen. Though I must admit, I assumed that it had always been understood that you were going to go this way, because there seemed to be like a few tricks or things done on set to just sort of keep the hair off the actor's face. Well,
I mean, the director, David Fincher, is very technical, and he kind of knows, he has a very technical background. So as he was shooting it, I think he was planning, contingencies on how to make that work where they weren't shooting split screens. And for those difficult shots, he was trying to help us out as much as possible. So they actually did have a headband, and it helped out. As as a point of demarcation, Edson said before that hairline's always a big deal. So when we have when he's wearing a headband, it kind of helps hide some of those issues.
Okay, so up until this point, I'm incredibly impressed with the work that you guys have done, but nothing prepared me, or for that matter, the rest of the industry, for the spectacular work you guys would do on pulling off Captain America. I mean, probably one of the most jaw-dropping comp jobs ever. Everybody I know in the industry was just staring at the screen going, how did those guys pull it off? It must have been a huge leap for you guys.
Well, thank you, and it definitely was. Marvel was, a big factor in that, and how they actually shot it, and how Chris Townsend, supervised everything. And to this day, we still get a lot of comments on it. If I get an Uber ride from somewhere, people are like, "Oh, you did Captain America?" And they stop it and they do the AB, and they can't believe it. Like the movie was relatively old, and still a lot of talk about it. But it was a significant leap in a lot of the stuff we did, because it was mostly a third of the movie, and it had to be consistent, through that third of the movie. And it was a big story point. If you don't believe that Chris Evans is a 90-pound weakling, not necessarily emaciated, but a nerdy weakling type of guy, you're not going to be part of the story. So it was, it was a big deal for us to get, all those shots looking the way they did, and it was, a big effort on our part, and I think it paid off.
So a couple of things about that. Firstly, there was some really clever work done by the practical on-set people, weren't there? I mean, like the back of the taxi, for example, I understand the seats were like dropped, just a bunch of things to facilitate that going in, wasn't there?
Absolutely. A lot of things were done to help facilitate it. We were involved in the beginning of the project as well. We definitely requested that they shoot a little guy, a little weakling for each of the lighting setups, so we have at least a reference. But in the end, Chris Evans was very adamant about having it be his performance. So anytime, that we tried to get away with using the body double, he's like, "That's not me." So we had to, depending on where it was, about 85% of those shots were actually Chris Evans.
Yeah, exactly, because the really keen thing about what you're doing is, not losing the performance. I mean, you put a lot of makeup on somebody or prosthetics or whatever, and you're going to basically have to act through the mud. And I think one of the most significant aspects of what you do, and is, apart from the technical marvel of it, is just that the performances are kept underneath the tech.
That's a very important part of what we do at Lola, and that's why a lot of people come to us. They anywhere from using too much makeup, where you dull the performance, to creating a CG digi-double, where you have somebody animating the face. You don't get the performance of the underlying actor. So what we try to do is, as much as possible, is try to keep the performance of the hero actor, and then supplement it with any 2D compositing tricks, 3D elements that we would create to help offset some of the stuff that we can't solve all in 2D to make it work.
So I guess for somebody like Patrick Stewart, you've got a well-known actor that's been de-aged, so presumably you get to take advantage of the fact they've been in the public eye for actually long enough that there's a lot of actual imagery from the period that you're heading towards. So does that how it works? I mean, I assume that, or am I just second guessing?
No, it helps a lot. The first time, the first question always is like, okay, what do you want the actor to look like if it's a de-aging sequence? So we'll go through and either production or we will come through and create a plate of images of what we think they're shooting for, and they would make a selection. But then, that problem, it becomes a problem at some point where, people think an actor looked a better way in a different movie, and then, there's different lighting scenes for everything that an actor is in. So it's very difficult sometimes if you have multiple people picking the hero looks, and then they change the hero looks. But it's always a baseline. Yeah, we will go back and take a look at any of the past movies, hopefully in high res, or get any high res still frames from production or the actor themselves, and use that as a baseline. And life cast. If we get a life cast of the actor, that helps to a certain extent as well. We'll use that as a guideline as well to reshape the face.
And of course, Captain America 2 showed you could age as well very effectively. I mean, the aging on Peggy was remarkable.
Yeah, that was again another new technique that was developed where Marvel is very keen on keeping the performance of the original actor. So they wanted Hallie Atwell's performance in the whole movie. And as we went through multiple stages of makeup and test, the end result was we took an older actor and some 3D and 2D tricks that we developed to actually transplant the old skin onto Hallie Atwell, retaining Hallie's performance, but also giving her the wrinkles and having the wrinkles animate to her face.
Yeah, I guess one of the advantages you've got with that is that we don't know the age version of the actress looks like, whereas when you're doing Brad Pitt younger, well, we all saw Brad Pitt when he was younger. So it's sort of easier to have an idea what we should be looking at. It almost works in your favor when you don't know, and then you're aging someone, because as far as we're concerned, the reality is what you show us.
It's carte blanche. I mean, there's definitely things that happen, as your face sags, your nose gets bigger, your ears grow bigger, your jowls, there's less sharp lines overall in your face. So you kind of take those ideas and you come up with what you think may be an older version of that person. It scares the actor sometimes when they see it for the first time. I think the studio always has to prep them in terms of, okay, this, if you don't like it, we can change it.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because I guess the actors enjoy not having to sit there for hours in makeup, and yet I have heard some actors say that the makeup helps them get into characters. And I guess the advantage you have over a plastic surgeon is that you get to, refine it and go back over and over again until you've got it right. Yeah,
and again, that's good and bad too, because then, we can be doing hundreds of versions and getting overages for everything, but or hopefully getting overages, but sometimes it takes a long time to fine tune it. But yeah, it is a huge advantage. We had a plastic surgeon who, when we were working with X-Men and a few other movies, and he was always very keen on, like, you guys are so lucky. You can go back and change it. If I make a mistake, it's a problem. They can't go back and change it.
Which brings me to the fact that sometimes you're doing things because what they did do on set is not what's wanted later. I mean, I think in Prometheus, for example, they decided to go a different way in post.
Absolutely. I think they did a great job on the makeup with the engineer, but the overall concept was to have it look like the statue of David. And overall it did, but there were certain key things, like the eyes weren't big enough and the prosthetic, the face was a little bit too large. So we basically were able to get some reference of the statue of David and use that to reshape the engineer's face. Those were minor tweaks, but it was actually much more difficult because it's in stereo. And when you're changing a shape, even if it's a prosthetic like the engineer, it's very difficult to do that on multiple plates.
So when it comes to work that you're doing sort of week in, week out here, is there a pattern? I mean, is most of the work face replacement stunt work, or what's the mix like?
More and more, it's, after the social network, I think we're doing a lot more face replacement work. Some of our process, the way we do it, allows us to get really close up. And again, we retain the actor's performance. So we're not using a CG digi double. So I think there's a huge benefit in that. And we're getting a lot of face replacement work. And
you did a lot of stunt work in Lone Ranger, didn't you?
We did a lot of stunt work in Lone Ranger. Yes, Edson was nominated for an Oscar as being part of that. But yeah, a lot of face replacements, and we also did the aging part of Old Tonto in the beginning. But yeah, it grew into the face replacement work grew into a bigger thing when Gore Verbinski found out that you could change the dialogue after you shoot the shot. He didn't really believe it. And he's like, wait, I can shoot my movie after I shoot the movie? So there's actually a few shots where we used this same face replacement technique to change dialogue, which, if it, depending on how it was shot, if they want to change a line or two, we're able to get the actor back in, reshoot the actor doing the performance, and we'll basically do a face replacement with the new dialogue on it.
And for bodywork, right? I mean, obviously after Skinny Steve, that was an option. And I think you did some work on Unbroken as well. Is that common?
Yeah, we I guess become the emaciation house after the Skinny Steve. Even like Skinny Steve was more of a 90-pound weakling, and yeah, there's a lot of subtleties between, like, emaciation is more of a, you're starving, where a 90-pound weakling is more of a nerdy type guy. But yeah, we do a lot of emaciation work, Hunger Games as well, and it's just, we kind of have that process down, and the actor doesn't need to go on such an extreme diet.
Yeah, I know. I mean, apart from the extreme health dangers of radical dieting, there's also the time it would take to change weight during the same film.
Absolutely. It helps, production as well, depending on what their shooting timeline is like. We budget it to do it in post. And, we ask, when we do the emaciation work, it helps if we get clean plates, so we can kind of recreate any of the backgrounds that we need to do when we make the person skinnier. But overall, it's a very efficient process.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, isn't it? I mean, it's all very well people having the size of their bodies changed or whatever, but you don't have the backgrounds to sort of put in the missing stuff that it's the same problem the stereo guys have. You don't have the fill to put in terms of what is suddenly revealed, the stuff that wasn't there.
Absolutely. Sometimes you have to do either matte painting clean plates or, CG set extensions, which turns into be more of a cost than even doing the emaciation at times.
So where's this going looking forward, Thomas? I mean, where do you see Lola's future? Is there any particular mix you want to get into or do more of?
Yeah, we're going to supplement a lot of the pipeline with some more 3D techniques as we continue to expand on the 2D side. We have a flame pipeline that's very pretty much built out to we know what we can do in the flame, and now we're just developing the 3D department. We'll do more CG digi-doubles when we can't use our process to do face replacements. Pretty much anything that involves humans will be going that way, more on the CG side as well.
Excellent. Well, congratulations again, and thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And don't forget to follow us on Twitter as FX Guide News or on Facebook. Until next time, see ya. For more industry news, in-depth features, podcasts and forums, check out fxguide.com. And for visual effects training, check out fxphd.com.